What's up, guys? Today we're doing an oil change on a 2014 Ford Escape, and everything I'm going to be discussing in this video applies to all 13 to 19 Escapes. So even if you have a little bit of a newer vehicle, this still applies. And even the general principle applies to all vehicles, with the exception of some Mercedes and BMWs like that. But some of you might be watching and thinking, this is an oil change. Everybody knows how to do an oil change. This is simple. But you might have some people on here that are 16 or even 45 that this is their first time doing their own oil change. And you know, the first time we did our oil change, we had to learn too. But this video is for you guys. Anyway, let's get started. Now, as you could tell at the beginning of the video, I have this car up on a slight incline. And that's because I'm going to take this cardboard right here to lay on so I can get up under the car, make it super easy to access. Now, if you have a spot like this, this is amazing. But I realize everybody doesn't have that. And if you have like just a flat driveway, you can also do this as well. Come over here to the side of your vehicle. You're going to want to take a jack stand and a jack. Take the jack this up, specifically on a point that has some strength, meaning the frame. If you jack it up on a place like this, you're going to tear the fender off or the door. You can look it up on YouTube. You'll probably see a video. But anyway, jack the jack up. Put the stand on there at the height that you want it. Set down the jack. And then come over to the other side. Repeat the same thing. Now, the main thing you're going to want to focus on doing on the other side is make sure you have it at the same notch. Having it at a different height is not good. It's not safe, etc. The other thing you're going to want to do if you have it up on a jack stand is make sure you chock the wheels in the back so that it doesn't roll, and put the park brake on to keep you safe. Now that you're under the vehicle, you're going to see this cover. There are 7 bolts that are holding this cover on to the vehicle. Right here, right here, right here, and right here. Now there are 3 more bolts in the back there, if you can see, that are holding the rest of that guard on. So you're going to want to take those off as well. And in order to do that, you're going to need a T30. Now you can use a screwdriver like this one, or you can use like a socket wrench version to do that as well. Doesn't really matter, but just get those 7 bolts off. All right, now that we've got the bolts off, I'm going to set these in the cup holder of the car. And the reason I like to use the cup holder is because it keeps everything in place. It's harder to lose that way. And you always want to make sure you keep track of your bolts, no matter what your work you're doing. Now, some people will like to do some work in the engine bay, for example, and they'll set bolts everywhere. They'll set it on the ground. They'll set it in the engine bay, on top of the roof. For one, they're harder to keep track of, and because the nature of things falling and moving and shifting, they get lost. And what do people do? They don't actually go and buy another bolt. They just go and use the ones they have, and next thing you know, like this shield at the bottom here, it'll be dragging soon. And then you end up buying a shield instead of just keeping track of your bolts. I've got my drain pan here, and you're going to want to get one of these. They're about $25, $30, depending on where you get it. Walmart, AutoZone, Advance Auto Parts, Amazon. If you go to Walmart, or especially like Advance Auto Parts or AutoZone, they're going to have those in about the same section, or they'll have somebody there that can help you find what you need. Now, some people will use like a milk jug or something like that, and you don't want to do that for 2 reasons. For one, it just doesn't work that well. Number 2, it's actually illegal, because anything involving a food container that does not contain food is illegal, because you'll have children that see like a Pepsi label or something like that, and it looks like Pepsi with that dark oil. They'll drink it, people get killed, people get sick. It's not good. Don't do it. Now, next you can see I've got this on a cardboard piece here, and you can use cardboard or you can use a tarp or something like that, but you're going to want to have something that's underneath your drain pan here, because ultimately you have drip, like here, and you don't want it on your nice pretty pavement. It's just easier that way. And like with the cardboard, it's easy to slide under, easy to slide off. Now that we're under the car, you're going to want to come to your drain plug, which is right here. You're going to want to use a 15mm socket with the socket wrench to take that off. First, though, you're going to take your drain pan, pull it under this bolt right here, when you take it off, oil is going to immediately start draining. And you're going to want that there to catch it. While our oil is draining into the drain pan, we're going to go into the engine bay and find our oil cap. Now, they're in different places in a lot of vehicles, but they almost always say something like 5W20, 10W30, something like that, and have this symbol on it to signify that it's your oil cap. So we're going to take that off, let there get some air in there, and just make sure that we get everything drained out. Now that the oil is drained, sometimes you might have a couple drips falling, a slow stream. That's fine. It's, you know, not a big deal, but you're going to want to go ahead and put that bolt that you took out of there back in. Make sure it's firm. You don't want to over tighten it though, because it will tighten up on its own. You don't want to use any kind of power tool like a impact wrench or anything like that. Always do it by hand. Now, after you get that bolt on, you're going to want to come over here and find your oil filter. Now, they're in different places again on some cars, but this one just happens to be right here, right at the front, as you can see, near their AC compressor. Sometimes you can take these out by hand, sometimes you can't. There's actually two tools you can use. One's like a clamp that's in a circular shape that you wrap around this, and as you turn it, it gets tighter. There's also like a little piece that goes up under here that grips onto these little grooves that attaches to a socket wrench that you can use. I have just the socket wrench version right now, so I'm going to use that. All right, for the replacement oil filter, we're going to be using the SuperTech from Walmart, and it's rated for 10,000 miles. It was about $3, so very cost-effective. Once you've got your old oil filter off, you're going to want to come to your new oil filter. You're going to see this rubber gasket right here. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is take some of that old oil that you just caught and go along the edge here and put it around the whole ring. Now, the reason for doing that is you want to make sure that it's lubed up so it goes on nice and smoothly when you go to put it back on. Some people will use their fingers actually to go along this edge and put that on. I don't recommend doing that because it's technically a carcinogen and we don't want people getting sick. So just use a rag or something like that to put it on. Once you go to tighten the oil filter back up, you're going to want to do it by hand. And the reason for that is because these things tighten up over time. You can over torque it. It can mess things up, make your life much worse. Just tighten it up by hand. Don't overdo it. Just make sure it's nice and snug. For the oil, I'm using the SuperTech 10,000 mile rated, high mileage, full synthetic. Now, this car is a little bit over 90,000 miles, and anything over 75 is considered high mileage. There are actually 3 different types of oil. You have traditional oil, blended, which is 50% synthetic and 50% traditional. And then you have the fully synthetic. Now, this wasn't actually that much more than the traditional, and fully synthetic is typically considered to be better. This car calls for 5W20, so that's what we're going to use. Now, to put it in, after we've gotten everything tightened up on the bottom, we're going to come to our oil cap area, and we're going to put a funnel right there. And this car technically calls for about 5 quarts. We're going to pour it into that funnel and right here. You've got your oil filter back on. You've gotten your oil in here. You're going to want to put your cap back on. Come back over here to your dipstick, and you're going to want to look at the end. Now, on this car, you have 2 holes, and you've got those little etched marks in between them. You can barely see them, but they're there. On some cars, they're lines. The one on the right that is closest to the end signifies the low end of the oil level. The one on my left at the top signifies the high end maximum level. Now, you want them between you want the level between both of those holes or lines. You don't want it above the maximum mark, and you don't want it below the minimum mark. Now, preferably, you want your oil level right before that top mark there on the left. But to check the oil level, you take your dipstick, feed it back into the hole after you wiped it off with a rag. You take it and you push it all the way to the bottom. You pull it back out. You look at those 2 holes, see where your oil level is, and if they're between that, you're good. Now, after that, you're just going to want to take those bolts and put your shield back on there. But after you've gotten that complete, you're done. Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. That completes the end of this video. I'm going to be doing more repair tips and maintenance tips. I hope to expand past that. I'm going to be doing maybe a couple reviews. If you guys have any questions, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll try and answer it as best as I can, but I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.